Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming to today's Play Attention training webinar. As you know, or most of you know, my name is Gwen Sorley, and I will be your host today. I'm glad to see we have a lot of individuals here today from around the world, and I really do hope that these training webinars help you in presenting Play Attention to your clients. Now, a couple of things before we begin. One is there is a Q&A box at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. Whenever you have questions, please do type your questions there, and I'll be able to address your questions as we proceed through. Also, we are recording this event, so if you want to review this webinar later, or you would like to share this webinar with any colleagues, you'll be able to do so following the webinar. I'll send out an email that will have the link to the recording. If at any time you lose your internet connection, don't worry. As soon as your internet resumes, just log back in and you'll be able to join us again. Also, there is a little construction going on outside, so hopefully that won't interfere. Hopefully you can't hear that. All right, so we're going to be talking today about a couple of things. We're going to be really focused on executive function and self-regulation. We have found that these are key terms in our marketing lately. We really get a high response from people who are looking at Play Attention when we use these two key terms. We've noticed that a lot of parents are being told that their children who have been diagnosed with ADHD have weak executive function. And they come to us not really knowing what that means. So it's important that all of you know how to explain executive function and self-regulation and how Play Attention can help improve and strengthen both executive function and self-regulation. So as I go through today, what I'm going to be doing is really talking to you as I do clients or potential families who are coming to us to help you understand how I use these terms in our demonstration. Now, I may go off a little bit and do a side note to all of you, but for the most part, as I go through initially, it's going to be presenting these terms in my Play Attention presentation as I would if it were someone coming to me who has not yet started their Play Attention program. Again, as I proceed through, if you do have questions, feel free to type those questions in the Q&A box. Let's go ahead and begin. Now, as I start the presentation for our clients or our potential clients, what I usually talk about is attention deficit. And when we hear about attention deficit, we know that a lot of times there's a focus on attention, but as you know, there are a lot more difficult areas than just attention. They also oftentimes have difficulty with organization, controlling their emotions. They have difficulty with working memory, with following through with verbal instructions, with social skills. They have difficulty with being able to start and complete an assignment in a timely manner. So they have difficulties in many different areas than just attention. So it's important that when we plan a Play Attention program, that we're not just focused on attention. It's important, of course, that we do focus on attention and are able to improve their attentive state, because attention is key to developing all of these other skills. But we have to make certain, in order to provide them with a comprehensive program, that we're addressing all of these other skill areas. When we talk about skills, we need to really focus on executive function. Executive function are those skills that allow us to plan, prioritize, avoid procrastination, and remain on task. These are skills that we use every day. However, these are skills that are typically weak for people with ADHD or attention difficulties. In other words, your brain may not be able to utilize these functions in the broad sense. So they're not really using these areas. So But what we know through neuroplasticity is that the brain is moldable, it's shapeable. And if we provide you with the right learning tool, we provide you with constant and immediate feedback in the right environment, you can develop these skills despite your current wiring. That is the foundation of play attention. Play attention provides you with advanced technology that will help strengthen these areas and so much more. Let's look at what is executive function. It's really a set of mental skills, and it's important we know what these mental skills are. Inhibition is key. Inhibition may be one of our children and adults who have attention difficulties. It may be one of their greatest difficulties, right? Inhibition. That's basically the ability to stop, think, and then act. How many of you are used to looking at your child or looking at your clients and saying, what were you thinking, right? Because a lot of times there's this division between what they know and what they do. And that is key. And it's very difficult for a lot of our children and adults with attention difficulties, that division between what they know and what they do. You know, I had one student in my second grade classroom, and he was very, very bright. However, he could never get anything done. He could come to me and he could tell me double-digit addition and subtraction facts off the top of his head. But when I said, great, now go back and sit down and write down that answer, I'd look at him 2 minutes later and he'd be on top of the desk or under the desk. And he had no idea what he was supposed to do. So there was that division between what he knew and what he actually did. Or a lot of our parents, they'll say to us, you know, he will get punished for something 1 minute. I will take everything away from him. He will have nothing left in his room. We'll talk about what he did. And 15 minutes later, he'll do that exact same thing because they lack this inhibitory control. And when you cannot control your inhibitions, it actually doesn't allow these other executive functions to act. So it's really important we're able to strengthen this area. Shift. Shift is the ability to move freely from one situation and another, to really change what you're thinking or what you're doing based on the current situation. Emotional control is just how it sounds. Being able to control your emotions, being able to bring rational thought to feeling. How many of you can relate to this? You look at your child sometimes and they're having an absolute meltdown over something that seems so little. There are these little situations that cause this big uproar in their emotion. So that's lacking emotional control, and that needs to be improved as well. Initiation is just that, being able to start an assignment or a task right away independently. Working memory, that's the ability to take in different bits of information, manipulate that information in some way, and then give a response, much like a mathematical word problem. This helps us with reasoning, evaluating, and comprehending. Planning and organization of materials. This, we are mandated to be able to do this every day, right? Let's say your boss comes to you and says, I need this assignment done by this date. If you have strong executive function, then you're able to look at that task. You're able to break that task down into little subtasks you can do daily in order to complete it in a timely manner. Or if you look at your child who may be in middle school, that child is given an assignment to do a book report by February 2nd. He can look at the book. He knows how long he has to actually read the entire book, when he needs to start writing the rough draft in order to have time to edit and write the final draft and turn it in on time. One of the oldest students I worked with was 25 years old, and he was very intelligent. But after high school, you know, he had struggled with attention difficulties his entire life. And after high school, he went to a university and he failed out miserably because of his attention difficulties and his difficulties with executive function. And I kept him in the full program for full 40 hours. And at the end of the 40 hours of play attention training, he enrolled in university again. And within the first couple of months of being back at university, he called me and he said, I just handed in something on time. And this is the first time I have handed in anything on time since middle school. So he was always very bright. He always was capable of doing academics. However, his executive function was so weak that he was not able to plan and organize and turn things in a timely manner. So play attention helped him develop the cognitive skills he needed in order to do that. And self-monitoring. This is the ability to judge your own performance based on some standard, being able to judge how well you performed. Executive functions are supported by cognitive functions. And what we do within play attention is integrate our advanced feedback technology with specific cognitive skill training to further strengthen executive function. When the components of executive functions come together to determine behavior, that's known as self-regulation. And again, self-regulation is that ability to stop, think, and then act. Okay? Now, all of the activities within play attention are designed to help strengthen self-regulation. For school and workplace success, it's important to know reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? But that's not enough. We also have to teach strong executive function. No one is born with strong executive function. However, we are all born with the potential to develop strong executive function. And that's the premise of play attention. We can help you get there. Now, if I go back to the student I was talking about earlier, he is a prime example of this. Remember, I told you he was really bright. He could call off answers from the top of his head, double-digit addition, subtraction. He knew the answer right away. However, when he took the end of grade test in second grade, and you all know that the schools are really focused on those end of grade tests. Unfortunately, maybe too focused on the end of grade tests, and they don't teach these other areas, the planning, the emotional control, the social skills. They don't focus on those as much, but they're equally as important. Because when I look at Jaylon, when he took that end of grade test, he tested out in the 65th percentile. Now, I knew that that test was not testing his ability to do math, because his math knowledge was much higher than the 65th percentile. What that standardized test was doing, it was testing his sustained attention. It was testing his ability to take that information from his head and get it down on paper. It was testing his ability to take in information and respond appropriately. It was testing his ability to filter out distractions, all of which he was struggling with. So I kept him in play attention again for that full 40 hours. And at the end of third grade, he tested out in the 99th percentile. Now, again, I did not make him any smarter. He was already very smart, very intelligent. However, what I did do was I helped him develop executive function. He then was able to show what he knew. This is how we do it. Let's start with the technology. Of course, here you have that body wave armband, which monitors brain activity indicative of your attention. You see it here on this student's arm. On this student's arm, there's a body wave armband. There are 3 sensors which monitor his ability to pay attention. It's actually monitoring brain activity that tells us how attentive he is. Then that information is given over to the computer via Bluetooth dongle so that it allows him to control all of the movement of the screen characters just with his attention alone. and he receives constant and immediate feedback as to whether or not he truly is focused and paying attention. And this is a key step to the learning process, because right now, if you look at your child or your students and you say, I need you to pay attention, what do they typically say back to you? What do they typically say back? Right. They typically say, I am, right? That's what I was hearing. I am paying attention. And they truly think that they are, but they haven't developed what it takes for them to stay very focused to low stimuli activity for longer periods of time. So now what we're doing is we're taking that very abstract concept of attention and we're making it concrete and controllable. So now they see their attention in real time. They feel what they're doing, and they're allowed to practice those very specific cognitive skills, which are going to support strong executive function. Let's look at how we use this technology to customize play attention for you. This is our neurocognitive training, and we need to know what areas we need to address for each individual. It's important, as I mentioned earlier, that we customize everyone's plan. Now, we do this a couple of different ways. We can provide you with the Focus assessment tool. Focus is a fantastic assessment. It's norm-based, and it allows us to look at different constructs of attention. So we look at your ability to pay attention over time. We look at your performance. We look at your consistency. We look at your ability to deal with distractions, both visual and auditory. We also look at your ability to control your impulsivity. Okay. Remember, the flip side of inhibition, of inhibitory control that we talked about earlier, is impulsivity. So if you do not have that inhibitory control, then you are considered to be impulsive. So again, the Focus assessment tool is a great tool that we can use to further customize your play attention plan. And if you are not currently using, now this is a side note to all of my resellers and all of my certified providers out there, if you're not currently using the Focus assessment, we've done several webinars on Focus so far. If you're not currently using Focus to customize your play attention plans, this is something that you should truly consider, because it really does help us evaluate that individual and make certain that we're reaching those areas that are most weak for them right now. And then you can also use this assessment tool not only as a pre-assessment, but in the middle of your training and then again at your end of your training to make certain that we have improved all of those areas over time. If you are not familiar with Focus and you're interested in learning more, make certain you let me know so we can chat about that after the webinar as well. So now I'm going to go back into my presentation here that I typically do. So we can use the Focus assessment tool, or we can do a consultation with you to talk about that individual's different strengths and weaknesses. Now, these are the different cognitive skill areas that we address within play attention. And I'm going to review all of these areas. You're going to notice that each of these areas are taught for a reason. They have an educational correlate because we need to make certain that we're encouraging transfer and generalization so that we're always able to relate exactly what they're learning during their play attention session and how to apply that skill back into the classroom or the home or the workplace. The first area we work on is attention stamina. Let me get my whiteboard here so I can point out these different areas. The first area we work on is called attention stamina. Attention stamina is your ability to direct and sustain your attention at will, much like being able to pay attention to the teacher in the classroom or the boss in the workplace, being able to direct and sustain attention. How many of you can relate to this? You know, because ADHD is actually a misnomer. There's no one with a complete deficit of attention. How many of you can relate to this? Your child comes home and he has a severe attention difficulty, yet he can come home and play Minecraft for hours and never move. Or you're a professional and the parents come to you and they say, I don't think he has an attention difficulty. He can play with his Xbox for hours and never move. We have to draw him away from that activity. Or you have a child who can get hyper focused on Legos. I hear a lot about Legos, where they can work on Legos for hours and hours and hours. Why is that? They have an attention deficit, and yet they can hyper focus on these areas. Well, they are wired to pay attention to high stimuli or high interest. So if you give them something of high interest or high stimuli, they can hyper focus on those activities. So you're going to notice that when we go through the software, all of our activities are engaging and fun. All of our graphics are engaging and fun, yet they're kept very low stimuli. Because we know that if we provide you with high stimuli, or we provide your child with high stimuli activity, they can hyper focus on that. They can pay attention to entertainment. We want to teach what's more difficult, and that's how to pay attention to low stimuli, much like the classroom teacher who cannot possibly compete with that high stimuli type of activity. So on attention stamina, we're teaching you how to direct and sustain your attention at will. Now, Margot has a good question. She asks, what is the feedback? Is it visual or auditory? Well, most of our activities are visual feedback, but we do have auditory component. Now, if you are a reseller, this is my side note here. If you are a reseller or a certified provider, of course, this is a time where you can actually have the parent or the participant in your audience come up and try play attention, right? You would do an actual, put the body wave armband on and actually use the play attention system and talk about the feedback that's provided. But if you are doing a webinar like I'm doing now, you might just chat about the feedback that's provided. So I'm going to talk about the feedback, but I want you to really be listening for key terms that I use so that when you're doing a live demonstration, you're incorporating those key terms into your presentation. Let's talk about the feedback provided on attention stamina. When your child starts attention stamina, you can choose, or he can choose from different characters. Let's say he chooses the whale. He's going to see that whale going across the screen. Once he's focused and paying attention, he's able to push that whale down to the bottom of the ocean just with his attention alone. If he gets distracted, it's going to start to float up because he's no longer as attentive. And distraction can be a variety of things, right? It could be that he starts a self-distracting behavior like fidgeting, or someone walks into the room and he can't filter that noise. Or maybe simply he starts to daydream, right? And he's no longer as attentive. So immediately he gets that visual feedback that he's no longer as attentive. And then he knows that he has to control that behavior or control that daydreaming in order to focus back in and push that character back down to the bottom of the ocean. Now, that is encouraging and teaching self-regulation. Now he knows when he's paying attention and when he's not paying attention. And more importantly, over time, he's going to learn when to recognize that or how to recognize that in himself, even when the body wave armband is not on, right? He may be in the classroom and he can better self-regulate because he's had this experience. So this is how we're strengthening self-regulation through immediate feedback. So now he knows when he's paying attention, when he's not paying attention, and more importantly, over time, he learns how to control that. Okay. Visual tracking. Visual tracking is that ability to pay attention and visually track that teacher as he or she moves about the classroom, right? This is if the teacher says to you, you know, he does great when I stand right next to him, but as soon as I walk away, he's out the window and he's out the door, and then he has that diffused attention where he's paying attention to a little bit of everything. So we're going to work on staying very focused and visually tracking that teacher as he or she moves about the classroom. Time on task. This is huge for both children and adults with attention difficulties. How many of you can relate to this? Your child comes home and he has 15 minutes of homework, and yet that 15 minutes of homework takes 2 or 3 hours. Or you're an adult and you think, I start a million things, I finish nothing. Now, as we discussed earlier, the students that we work with are usually very bright. They know how to use the material. How to do the material. They know how to do math. They know how to read. It's just the process that's difficult, right? Being able to start, stay on task until completion. That closed-end tasking. And that's what we're going to teach here. So now 15 minutes of homework is going to take 15 minutes and not 2 hours. Then I like to direct your attention down to academic bridge, because a lot of times what I'll do is we'll start with time on task, and then we'll talk about, what were you doing to stay very focused and to finish that in a timely manner? Great. Now take that same level of attention and read these 3 pages or do these 5 math problems. Or if you're an adult, you might do some databasing or reading a user's manual, any work-related task. Now remember, you still have that body wave armband on. And as long as you are paying attention to your reading, your math, your spelling, your databasing, you're going to hear, good, great, because that body wave armband is not monitoring where the eyes are. It's monitoring how attentive you are. So if you're paying attention to your academic work, you're going to hear, good, great. If you get distracted, you hear focus, and then you get that feedback that you're no longer in that state you need to be in order to finish that in a timely manner. Okay? This promotes transfer and generalization, what it looks like when I'm doing these activities on the screen, and how to apply those skills back into the classroom or the home setting. It's great if your child can come in here and do really well during play attention. However, what's more important is that he is going to be able to take these skills he's learning and apply them when he gets back into the classroom or back in the home setting, or if you're an adult, back into the workplace. And that's what we're working on here. Short-term memory helps you with remembering dates, names, facts. Discriminatory processing, the ability to filter out distractions, being able to filter out those distractions around you. When I talk to adult clients, they'll often say, it's like there are a million different TV sets going on in my head all at the same time, because they're taking in everything around them. Remember, we talked about how attention deficit is really a misnomer. There's no one with a complete deficit of attention. What usually happens is they have great attention. It's just diffused over a variety of things. They're taking in everything. So we're going to teach them how to stay on their task and filter out all of that unnecessary stimuli. These first 6 activities come standard in the core, right? And there's a beginner, intermediate, and advanced skill option that you have to reach certain benchmarks before moving up to intermediate and then to advanced. And there's sheer genius technology that's going to make those decisions for you and tell you when you have met those benchmarks and can move up to intermediate and then to advanced. These remaining 6 are options for you. And we can pick and choose from these options when we're customizing your program. And remember, customization can be done through that consultation, or it could be done through the focus evaluation. Auditory processing. Auditory processing helps you follow through with verbal instructions. So if you say, go to your room, put away your sneakers, bring down your jacket, he's going to be able to follow through that with those instructions without you redirecting him. Hand-eye coordination, just as it sounds, helps with handwriting, keyboarding, catching a ball. Motor skills, this is great for your clients who has more bumps, bruises, accidents than their peers. Being able to develop that mind-body coordination. Social skills, I talk to a lot of parents who will say, my daughter is so sweet, yet she struggles with friendships. And that's usually because they're not paying attention to the social cues. So they miss the look, they miss the shake of the head. So they oftentimes don't have that inhibitory control, right? They don't have that emotional control. So we have to develop social skills to improve those areas. Spatial memory, remembering where things are located, And working memory, as we discussed earlier, a little bit of a higher level thinking skill, taking in that information, manipulating that information in some way, and then giving a response, much like a mathematical word problem. So why did I go over all of these cognitive skills with you? As my resellers and my certified providers, I know you know what's included with this, but this is how we talk about each individual area and relate it back to the classroom or back to the workplace. And I would just want to make certain that you are incorporating that. And sometimes it's good to just hear someone else present it. And remember, we want to talk about all of these different cognitive skills that we address within play attention, because these cognitive functions support strong executive function and self-regulation. That's key when you're doing your presentation. So this is the neurocognitive training aspect of play attention. And you should be able to break down what sets play attention apart from any other program out there. This first example is important for you to note, because this is what sets us apart from any other program they can ask about. Your clients or your potential clients could ask about any other program, and this sets us apart because this is what our patents are based on. Play attention is the only program available that integrates that feedback technology with executive function training and self-regulation. Or you could say it's the only program that integrates real-time feedback technology with cognitive skill training and behavior shaping. Okay, there's no other program out there that takes the best of all teaching methods and incorporates it into one full package. You also have the most advanced brainwave monitoring device available, right? When you look at other brainwave monitoring devices, they always have something on the head. They have a headband or sticky pads or ear clips. Even the first 14 years of play attention, we had a helmet design. And why is that? Well, it's always been something on the head because when you're looking at brainwave activity, you're monitoring an electrical signal. And that signal is so small, it's so minute that it's easiest to monitor if you're close to the head, close to the source, right? Which is the head. But the difficulty with that is no one likes to wear something on the head. And especially if you're working with children or adults with attention difficulties, they often have sensory issues, right? So they don't like something on the head. It's invasive. It's uncomfortable. And so we've worked very hard to advance the technology to a point where you can now monitor that same exact brain signal that our helmet once monitored, but you do it through the body. Much easier to use and much more comfortable for the client. There are also the 3 randomized controlled studies done by Tufts University School of Medicine. All of you here today should know those studies. If you're not familiar with them or you do not have those materials, make certain you reach out to me. And of course, your brain becomes the mouse or the joystick, okay, based on NASA research. All right, do any of you have any questions? And that's just an overview I wanted to give you on how we are now incorporating in our presentations executive function and self-regulation. We, of course, still go into the body wave armband and how it works. We talk about all of the specific cognitive skill areas that we address because, again, you want to reinforce that we're going to customize the play attention plan, that we're going to use the cognitive skill activities, the cognitive skills, and we're going to strengthen those areas because when you can strengthen those cognitive functions, you strengthen executive function and self-regulation. Okay, looks like we have a large group, but a quiet group today. So as I mentioned earlier, I am going to send out an email follow-up that will have this recording linked to it. So you'll be able to go ahead and review the recording again to help fine-tune your presentation. And if you go through the presentation and you have additional questions, because it may take, maybe a second time to review things and really process all this information before you have questions, feel free to reach out to me at any time. Marilyn does have a question. I had a client and missed the first part of the webinar. Yes, you'll get a copy, as I just mentioned, Marilyn. I did record this, so everyone will receive a copy of the recording, and we will post this. We will post the whole series on the support site so that you'll be able to start looking at all of these. Now, as I mentioned in my email, we will be offering a new webinar, a new training webinar every month. And I will keep you updated on the new subject each month. If you ever have an area that you'd like me to review that you don't see on the agenda upcoming, make certain you reach out to me and let me know if there are certain areas you would like me to review in an upcoming webinar. Thanks so much, everyone, for attending. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I hope you all have a great weekend. Again, I'm always here to assist you, so make certain you reach out and ask any questions anytime. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.